Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hi from beautiful Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Friday's Bhagavatam class. Welcome to lovely Pittsburgh. It is actually sort of lovely. Have you ever been to Pittsburgh, Kaustubha? There's millions of bridges here.
My whole, I think there's 3 bridges.
No, come on.
There's 3 rivers. They got 3 rivers. I guess they
3
probably have
rivers.
more bridges.
Yeah,
but
3 rivers. No, there's hundreds of bridges.
My father grew up in that area, you know.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you're going to Beaver, Pennsylvania this weekend, right?
Yeah, your father from Beaver?
My father's from, I think it's Beaver County. It's like Elwood City, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It's right near Butler, where Srila Prabhupada went.
Tom Essex from around here, or he's got family around here. I think Tom Essex from Butler. Tom Essex has so many weird, interesting, connective stories.
Tom's coming to Italy, I saw, right?
Tom's coming from Italy.
Awesome.
We got to get him on Walk on Wednesday, too. Yeah, I'm with Jeff and Rachel here. I'm trying to finish my book. You know what? Truthfully, I'm also working on my divorce. I know I shouldn't talk about stuff like that, but I'm working on how to separate. And I tell you, it's super confusing. Super confusing. And my ongoing prayer that I turned into a song is Krishna's got a plan. Krishna's got a plan. Sweet baby Krishna's got a plan.
All right.
When I get really down, I just Krishna's got a plan. Krishna's got a plan. Sweet baby Krishna's got a plan. Clap, clap. That's my song. So if you're suffering out there and you're like caught in like, where am I turning here? What am I doing? Go ahead, be as dharmic as you can, and Krishna's got a plan.
That's all that you can do, right? Is be as dharmic as you can, and then the worrying about what comes after that. That's his plan, right?
Yeah, the stress is trying to figure out you're gonna create the plan. You're gonna move forward. You're gonna try to figure out what's best. You're gonna try to act in a dharmic way, and Krishna's got a plan, and the plan's gonna be beautiful. Can I read to you this person from Lolita wrote?
This, I believe it's a Krishna miracle you're talking about?
It's a Krishna miracle of sorts, my friend.
Yes. Let's hear it.
This is from Lalita Devi Dasi, who's a disciple of Hridayananda Das Goswami. Dear Raghu, Kaustubha, and Meera. I'm calling you Meera. Isn't that cute? Pam Ho. Pam Ho is funny because that means that's short. When you've been around devotees for a while, you use these acronyms, Pam Ho, which means please accept my humble obeisances. But to write that out on every text message, it's ridiculous. So you just write Pam Ho, exclamation point. And then they write another one, which doesn't sound as good as an acronym. It's AGASP, exclamation point, which is all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Pam Ho, ax. Paramatma is funny because he used to say that all the time. Pam Ho, ax. I can finally sit down and write this after a long month. I wanted to share this with you. I wanted to send a different Krishna miracle in for this podcast giveaway, but because
you gotta slow down and read this thing clear.
Okay, sorry. I can't just stumble through it and burst through it, and skip over words. Okay.
Like one sentence at a time.
I wanted to send a different Krishna miracle in for the podcast giveaway, but because my beloved uncle was terminally ill, I was only able to listen in. For 3 weeks, I was going back and forth from work to home to my uncle's house to see him. I saw how fast his cancer ate his body up. This man was a father figure for me, and I loved him so much. When I found out that he was sick, I saw it as an opportunity to serve when he needed it most. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, and oh boy, it was rough. Before he stopped recognizing me, I promised I would be with him, and in his last moments, I promised he would not die alone, and that I would make sure he was treated well. Days went on, and his health steadily declined. I chanted the Maha Mantra while he slept. I gave him Maha Prasadam from my Shalagram Shila, Hari Kripa Sindhu, that's the name of her Shalagram Shila, and had deep conversations with him about his connection to God at that critical time. What a great person to have in your life when you're dying. A devotee coming to visit you, giving you prasad, talking to you about God. I've been listening to Wisdom of the Sages for a few months now, and I especially listened in anytime I was on my way over to see him. That's what's good about Wisdom of the Sages. You can just put it on while you're driving somewhere. I was on my way over to see him. Okay. I'm always an episode behind. And on Saturday, June 26th, I listened to Friday's podcast. That's a miracle. I guess that was the miracle. That's the name of the show. That's a miracle. You remember?
Oh, yeah, that was the name of it. That's
okay.
Miracle, yeah.
That's what she's saying, because that's a miracle.
Yeah.
I went to work, and when at work, I just got a feeling that I had to leave. I left work and drove over calmly to my uncle's house. I continued listening to Krishna miracles when suddenly I had another Krishna miracle of my own. I knew I needed to be with my uncle and his family. I parked and walked towards his house, opened the door and walked in. He looked at me with eyes wide open. A very strong ray of light came into the room, and I was only able to put down my things when I realized he wasn't breathing well, and he was leaving his body at that moment. And all the while with Wisdom of the Sages in my ear. So I walked over to him and held his hand and hugged my cousin, his daughter, and told him, "Uncle, it's okay. We love you, and you are not alone. We love you." And he took his last breath, and Raghunath shouted, "That's a Krishna miracle."
Amazing. In other words, she was still listening to it, or she had it in her headphones, or
I don't know.
Or she just felt that.
Did she have a boom box? That's a Krishna. Did he hear it? Did he hear me say Krishna? It truly was. The fact that I listened to Paramatma in my heart to leave, I was able to keep my promise to him, thanks to Krishna. That light I saw was a miracle as well, since that place is always very dark. And that I kept my calm listening to Krishna miracles, and all the while everyone else was falling apart around me, was also a Krishna miracle. Yes, it was heartbreaking to see that. Literally, I saw when he left his body. At that same time, I know he will have other opportunities to get closer to God, and that brought peace to my heart. I just felt I needed to share this with you. Thank you for your sweet service, Raghu Kaustubha and Miracle, your servant, Lalita Devi Dasi, San Diego, California.
That's nice. You know, it's what I see in that is, you know, she had a desire to serve, and she made a promise based on that desire. And when she was needed most, somehow she got some inspiration to go there right at that time, at that specific moment. She could have easily have missed it. And she mentioned that she felt that it was like Paramatma, it was God in the heart telling her, now's the time to go. Right? And, you know, of course, people can be skeptical of that. But it is my faith, you know, that when you only want to serve, in other words, to be like a person of Krishna miracles, right? Like you and I both know people that it's like wherever they go, like special things are happening in their lives, you know, that they're always bringing this beautiful, positive, devotional influence wherever they go. And it seems to be that when you let go of your other desires, you know, when you really start to operate on that very selfless level, now you've got the confidence, like you've got the faith that like I don't need to fight and compete in this world to get the things that I think are going to make me happy. I'm happy just to serve. That's all I want is to serve. Then that voice in the heart, which is there to speak to us all the time, but we're just not turned that way. We're not looking that way, you know. But then that volume gets turned up, and you just become directed to wander around this world doing lots of wonderful stuff, you know.
Yeah. Or else we wander due to we wander due to lust. If you're absorbed in lust, lust makes you wander around the world. If you're absorbed in greed, greed makes you wander around the world. You know, my takeaway from Lolita's story is that if you're a spiritual presence, you affect everybody that you love. You yourself becoming a spiritual presence affected that cousin, affected that uncle. I mean, probably changed the destination of her uncle tremendously. Like what made something which is tragic incredibly fortunate.
Yeah.
It's the highest welfare work we do is like really to take care of our own spirituality, and then we become like a ripple effect of of divine energy for everybody we touch.
I like that.
It was a ripple effect of divine energy, Mara.
Ripple effect of divine energy.
Ripple effect of divine energy. She's like, yeah, he's on today. Ooh. Oh man, that's good. You know what? You want to have a good time? Who wants to have a good time? I'll tell you, have a good time. You go to Apple Podcasts and you read those podcast reviews. There's a whole bunch of Krishna miracles going on in there. Okay. You know, random people just having random things, and they turn on the podcast and it speaks to them. It's just so nice to read that. That's why Kaustubha's. I'm reading them and get this text message from Kaustubha's like, "Where are you? It's 4:59." And I get on. You know what I do when Kaustubha sends me a text message or something like that, like, "Where are you?" As soon as I sign on to Zoom, I quickly let Mara in first to buffer Kaustubha. I was like, "Oh, it's Mara. She's slowing things down." But today she wasn't there.
I think what you
I
do
had
is
to just deal with Kaustubha.
I think you just say, "Yeah, oh no, I'm up, I'm here," and then you like quickly start to to open it up.
Get dressed.
Okay.
No, I started reading those Apple podcasts. I got lost in there. And yesterday I was late. Yes, Kaustubha was like, "You've been late for 2 days." I was like, "Yesterday I was late because I was on the wrong Zoom channel. I was on the yoga class Zoom channel. And no one was joining. I was like, it's 4:59 and no one's on the show today. This is one of those tragic moments in my life. I'm going to put on Zoom and no one's going to be there. It's like the nightmare you have that you go to school naked or something. It's the same thing. I go to Zoom and no one's there. No one else had that nightmare, just me. School naked. I'm looking at everybody.
I think
with
it's a
blank
classic school in the underwear or something like that.
School in the underwear.
Psychologically, there's something to that. Yeah.
Okay, Justin had it. She's still reoccurring.
All right, we ready?
We're ready. Friday. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam vitojayam mudiraye. Before we start in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, I want you to offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistaki, by regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome in the heart will become completely eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmadatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances to their lotus feet. You know, we've been having a Krishna Miracle Marathon, Kaustubha. 8:30 Eastern time every night for Patreon members. Join our Patreon party by giving a monthly donation to our podcast. If you like it, if you like what we're doing, come on, throw something in the collection basket. Bhakti Justin's going around like in church. They go around with that basket. Wasn't that awkward? That collection basket. That's what we're doing, basically. We're putting the collection basket out there on Patreon. Patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages. It's a community-supported podcast. Thanks, everybody who contributes. And thanks for all the people. People are sometimes up in their donation. That's very sweet of you. We really appreciate it. It means a lot to us. And also, I'm in Pittsburgh teaching at Zeb's studio. Zeb is on Zoom right now. He's our Zoomer. And at the Yoga Factory in Pittsburgh on Saturday, and at Andrea, who's an other. She's got kids. She can't do it at 5. But Andrea was one of the original Super Soul Sacred Sangha ladies, and now she's an other, but she's there every day, she says. And I'm in Beaver, Pennsylvania at the Sangha Center in Beaver. It is a holy spot here in Pennsylvania, the Sangha Center. And Sweet Baby Krishna tonight at 8:30. Tonight we are reading a good spot. The one of my favorite stories. Brahma gets bewildered. The bewildering of Brahma and the stealing of the calves and the cowherd boys.
Good one.
Yeah. So we're in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're in Canto 3, and we're reading about the pregnancy of Diti. So you have Diti, the mother of the demons, and her co-wife, Aditi, the mother of the demigods.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. All your kids are demons and all her kids are demigods.
Well, no, hold it. Remember, now let's just give a little background again. That Diti was kind of like, let's do it now. And it was an inauspicious time. Her incredibly sensitive yogi, right, very sensitive to subtle influences, yogi husband, said, now's not the time. It'll bring in auspiciousness. She was kind of like, well, let's throw the manual out the window. Let's do it now.
Let's do it. That was her T-shirt. Just do it.
He gave in, and then he comes. After they're done, he goes. He takes a shower. He sits down, goes into his meditation, and he comes up with the news. Oh, I've perceived some other subtle stuff out there, and there's good news and there's bad news. So the bad news is that you're going to have 2 sons, and they're going to just be like universal, like terrors. Complete tyrants.
You ever had those kids in high school? They're brothers, and they're just like the brothers are total terrorists.
Yeah, well, these are the original universal ones. But the good news is that your grandson is going to be like the best of devotees. He's going to make up for it all. So like, although, Diti's sons are demonic and Aditi's are like the devas, her sons will be like the devas. But Prahlad, he's more than all the devas. He's the purest of devotees. So it's nice that, we were discussing how this chapter, let's not get caught up in let's try to take what the real message is. And where this chapter concludes is, the Bhagavatam's always pointing us towards pure bhakti, towards pure devotional service, to understanding I'm not this body, I'm not this mind. Even all of these subtle sciences and all that, they're all meant to lead. All the philosophy, all the different practices, it's all meant to lead to something that's very simple and pure. And that is that, I act out of love. I act out of love for God, who's the root of all existence, and I act out of love for every living being who grows from that root. And so this is where this chapter ends. It gets us on point. And it's the description of the glories of Prahlad, who's the grandson of Diti. And so the bad news again was that these 2, universal tyrants will be born. But the good news is that their son, Prahlad, will be, the verses that we just read yesterday in text 44 and 45 says, his fame will be broadcast equally with that of Krishna himself. It's interesting because that whole, again, I think it's 7 or so chapters in hundreds of verses in the 7th canto that describe this Leela. It's the Leela of Lord Nrsimhadev, right, where Vishnu comes in a half-man, half-lion form to protect Prahlad. But if you read all those chapters, Narsingadev, Vishnu, he hardly says anything. There's like just a few verses where he speaks. It's mostly the teachings of Prahlad, this boy.
Mm.
And and it's the example of his character. And so we read a verse yesterday and this was text 46, that said, in order to follow in his footsteps, saintly persons will try to emulate his character by practicing freedom from animosity, just as the purifying processes rectify gold of inferior quality. Now that is going on to this day, right? Like that saintly persons are looking at the qualities of Prahlad, trying to emulate his qualities, particularly freedom from animosity. I have no enemies. I see the pure spiritual quality or potential of every living being, and I relate to them based on that spiritual potential, and I'm able to see past all externals to this day, right? And all of us here, on Wisdom of the Sages, that's our thing, right? We're trying to emulate that quality. And this chapter, there's a few more verses, and these will just go on to list further qualities of Sri Prahlad, that most exemplary Bhakti-yogi.
Mm. You made this good point also when you started a moment ago, that when you read the Bhagavatam, you can't get hung up on these details. First of all, there's cultural details. There's things that happened thousands of years ago, and we're trying to like make heads or tails of it. Mm-hmm. I find that people who want bhakti will find bhakti there, but people are just sort of poking around with tons of skepticism. You can always find things to push you away from bhakti. You've got to be really genuinely, sincerely interested in bhakti, and the message is right there. I know this because for myself, I had the Bhagavatam in my life when I was a young man. I had the Bhagavatam in my life, but I always would find fault with the Bhagavatam. Like, well, what do you mean a co-wife? How can a person have two wives? Forget it. I'm not going to read this. And I throw out everything because I hear about a co-wife. What do I know how things were done back then? I don't know anything, but the truth was I wasn't ready to hear a message of bhakti back then. And the beautiful thing about Krishna consciousness or bhakti yoga is that Krishna, there's so much truth there, even when things sound crazy culturally, or you're talking about kings or demigods or higher planets or, mystical beings, and some stuff, it's too far-fetched. That little Krishna fish hook gets stuck, and you can't get that out of your heart. And even though it might not make any sense, you get that little Krishna hook stuck in your heart, and it's over. And there's that beautiful verse by Rupa Goswami. If you love, I'll do my Raghunath translation of it, Kaustubha, but you know what I'm talking about. If you have some love for the material world, and what does the material world offer? Oh, it offers great romance. It offers great dining. It offers great movies and entertainment and travel and leisure. It offers all that beautiful things. If you have great love for all that stuff, never, ever go to the banks of the Yamuna River. Because there you will see this charming little boy, Krishna, playing on his flute. And he will become lodged in your heart, and it will destroy your material life. I'm looking at some faces right now that Krishna, they went to the banks of the Yamuna, either literally or in their heart. And they saw Krishna. And Krishna got lodged in their heart. And nothing is the same.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about.
Nothing's the same anymore. They can't go back. They can try to move away, but Krishna's got them hooked. It's that fish hooks in, and with the fish hook, it's got that barb. You cannot get it out.
You know who I spoke to yesterday was the spiritual scientist, Chaitanya Charan.
Is that his Instagram name, the spiritual scientist?
I don't know.
Are you just calling him
Instagram?
that?
No, well, he goes by that. Like, he's got a website called the Spiritual Scientist.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
it's a good Instagram name too.
Yeah, and so he'll be our guest on Sunday, and we're gonna have a really interesting conversation, and that conversation will kind of be around what we were just bringing up, the idea of certain things in these texts people approach these texts in different ways, right? Some are approaching them, from a textual, like they're approaching spirituality from a textual angle. some from a traditional angle. And what he's going to emphasize is this applicational angle. Like, in other words, he's got explanations for all kind, like you were just saying, you read all kind of far out things and you can get caught up in that.
Yeah.
Now he's such a clear thinker. And, he's got explanations for how to understand these things that sound very far out. Like, like he uses a term, uniformitarianism. Right.
I love when people just start making up words.
I don't know if he made that up. I don't think he did, but he's using it. He's applying it. Uniformitarianism. It's this actually an unscientific idea. It's an assumption that the same natural laws and processes that operate in our present day within the realm of my senses, within the realm of my observations, that those same laws and processes are universal, that they apply everywhere and at all time. Right? Like, for instance, I remember even thinking this as a kid, like in these science classes, and they say, well, life only exists on Earth. Why? Because there's
water.
Yeah, because what's needed for life is only existing here, like water, for instance. And I said, well, okay, but maybe other people don't need water to live.
Yeah!
Isn't that a possibility?
Right? Didn't you? Yeah. I used to think like that too.
Yeah.
So what? How do you know everything needs water? Because you need water. Everything needs water. Yep, there's no water there. There can't be life. Yeah. Unless they all need milk. And unless milk just comes out of the earth there. Huh? Why does everything have to be just like you?
Did you share that with your science teacher? Yeah, milk just comes out of the earth there.
Yeah. I know, but it's one of those things. But if you go in with that skepticism, because what I did not want to do is I did not want to be a brahmachari. My sexual passions said, I will surrender to anything but have to give up my sex life.
Well,
therefore I found every little fault with the Krishna conscious movement at age 22. And then when I realized, like, no, actually my sex life has been tricking me in illusion again and again, and like a baited hook. That was Shakespeare. Sex life is like a baited hook. Then I realized, like, no. I've got to, I've got to surrender and get over my attachments. And then I realized, like, I went back to my teenage philosophical mind, like, what do I know anyway?
Well, there you go. You see, there's a principle in what you just said that's very fascinating, and that's that our desires compromise our objectivity. Right? Like, if we want something bad enough, right, or if we don't want something to change, then our ability to see truth becomes compromised by that. Objectivity means whatever the outcome is, my desires shouldn't affect that, right? It shouldn't. I'm not trying to make reality fit into my desires. But when we do, and we use the example, right? Like someone falls in love with someone and everybody can tell this is the wrong person, but you've lost all your objectivity, right?
He's so good. You don't know him.
You don't know him. Yeah, you don't know him like I know him, right? And that's not, we know him better than you know him.
We know him much better than you know him.
And so like you're saying, when you're full of material desires, you don't want to hear that, like, truth means letting go of your material desires, So in any case, he uses that term, and we talked for, I don't know, an hour and a half or something, just going back and forth. He's such a brilliant, he's an amazing person because he was born with polio, right, or he contracted polio at a young age. And, so that's affected his ability, he has to walk on crutches, and it's made life, in one sense, it's made life very difficult. And I think a lot of people would feel, why did I get stuck this way? And my God, you become depressed and cynical and
defeated,
angry at the
bitter.
world, or feel humiliated by it, or whatever it may be. But here's a person, you could see it's like, whatever disadvantages came from that, he was able to, like, apply the advantages. Like, it's just made his mind so incredibly lucid, and he's so productive. It's like I've got AD, like, I feel like I have I can only concentrate on something for so long. This man produces so much. Oh yeah, totally. It's like, and this man produces so much that he can just, like, his concentration is so deep and his thought is so deep,
If you've got ADHD, what do I have?
I don't know. But his, so anyway, what we're going to talk about on Sunday is that there's different ways to look at these texts, but what may be especially applicable, or well, let's not especially, but what may be especially relevant to us is looking at these texts in terms of application, right? In other words, I can set aside the fact that you just said that Lord Vishnu manifested in the form of a boar out of the nostril of Lord Brahma, who was born on a lotus flower growing from the navel of Lord Vishnu, who was in a bubble that is the entire universe that came out of the pores of another form of Lord Vishnu, along with unlimited other universes. Okay, I can put that aside for a second. And I can look at what message is coming through this narration, and how does that apply in my life? And, how does that apply in terms of how I connect better with myself or with others? How does that apply in terms of my emotions and how I deal with my emotions, or how I do, how does it make me a better person? How can it make me a better person? So he's just so insightful. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation on Sunday.
Yeah, we got some good people. We've got another Amarendra Prabhu is going to be on the show in a few weeks. Incredible guy. Like Bhagavatam master from like childhood. It's amazing. It's amazing people we have in our life. Yeah. Another thing on the Bhagavatam, and I think you know this story, but I shared it last night. I want to share it again. It's like when I was a young man, and hanging out on the hardcore scene, Harley Flanagan from the Cro-Mags, he used to always just preach to me about Krishna and tell me about Krishna. And, I was just sort of like enchanted with him because he was such like a colorful character and a bass player for a band that I liked. But he used to tell me about Krishna. I remember all those guys in the Cro-Mags were all into Krishna, but one guy, Paris, who also I was friends with him also a little too. So they all used to preach to me. And then Paris, I remember him listening and watching them preach to me. And he must have just said, oh, here's this poor innocent guy that they're trying to indoctrinate.
He's getting caught up in this.
He's getting caught up in their thing. I got to save him. So he comes over and he goes, hey, man, come here. Let me talk to you. Let me put some sense into your head here. Do you know what these guys are telling you? Hear me out. They're telling you that everything in the universe, the origin of everything, oceans, rivers, mountains, trees, flowers, lions, zebras, everything is coming from a little blue cowherd boy. Is that the most insane thing you've ever heard in your life?
It's a classic case of uniformitarianism.
Yeah. And I thought to myself when he said, I was like, why not? Why not? Could be. I didn't say that to him. I was like, yeah, they're crazy. Oh, those crazy guys. But I thought, yeah, why not? Why not? What do I know? I think it takes a lot of that to sort of move forward with this philosophy, which can sound so fantastic. Why not?
But I think even like in your more, like now in your more mature understanding and having learned more and having gone through more, the answer could have been like, well, let's set that aside for a second. And let's look at the other things that they're saying, right? Like, in other words, like the whole yoga process that's being laid out in the Bhagavad Gita about, the advantages of controlling one's senses, about, you could just go through the different philosophical, practical things. And that's the applicational point, right? So like, take it away from the tradition or like the literal interpretation and say, well, let's set that aside for a second. Let's talk about the positive things that are, can you admit that? Can you recognize that?
Can you see your spiritual being, that there's life? Life is more than just consumption. Can you admit that?
Yeah.
Can you understand how meditation is a good thing? About hearing or chanting helps you, has an effect on the consciousness. Can you understand you're not a body, but you're a spiritual being? Do you see other people as spiritual beings? Do you believe spirit is in all plants and animals and the earth itself? And then when you start to break it down,
what about consciousness? What's your explanation for they have an explanation for consciousness. Do you?
Yeah.
And then after you're done with all that, then, well, now let's hear your creation story and see if that's pretty far out.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't have one. Okay, well, then, who are you to deny any other one,
Yeah. And I think it's sort of cool that the creation story is a baby with a flute. That's sort of cool.
It's some even being beyond cool. You know, there is a logic to it. There is a method to it, that you can see. That what we're all searching for, including him, is ultimately love in life, right? And if that's the case, why? Where does that desire originate? Why is that built into us? Why is that programmed deep into us? Maybe because God's the ultimate lover, and the purpose of life is to love. And why shouldn't that be someone that's charming and beautiful?
Yeah.
So.
Hey, I went just one more step down this rabbit hole.
Okay.
I'm a little tired today because I stayed up late watching YouTube videos, but none of my usual animal attacking videos. Lori Pag immediately went, "Oh my God, he did again."
He went down the rabbit
No, but it
hole.
was right after Sweet Baby Krishna, so I started Googling Bunky Bihari just to see what would come up on YouTube. Because you know why? I was writing my book and I was talking all about Radha Kund, and I was getting into Radha Kund and I wanted to look at Radha Kund. So I started Googling, YouTube searching Radha Kund, YouTube searching Vrindavan, and I found this documentary on Bunky Bihari, which was somebody made. It was like an interview or something, and it was all in Braj Bas or Hindi.
Oh, hold on. You have to explain what Bunky Bihari is.
Bunky Bihari is a name of a particular deity in Vrindavan.
A
That
temple.
manifested both as Radha and Krishna. So he's dressed both as a man and a woman, because he's split right down the middle. And there's a few other deities like this as well too. That's Radha and Krishna. Radha Vallabha is one as well. But anyway, the priest was telling the story because the person was asking, why is your morning program so late around here? Because usually morning programs start, the Mangala Arti, the very morning worship starts, sometimes temples at 4:30 in the morning. But at Bunky Bihari, it starts sometimes at 7:30 or 8 o'clock. And they were like, well, little Bunky Bihari ji, he's just a little boy. He can't wake up so early. And we also don't use any loud bells or loud instruments here because it's too jolting for a little child. And he says we also like to let him.
It's too jolting for a little child.
They have this complete absorption. This is my child. And then he said, and they're like, and in his inner room, we leave him with plenty of toys and sweets in case he wakes up in the middle of the night and wants something to snack on. We leave him with something to drink. And of course, he also goes to bed very early because he's just a young child. He cannot stay up very late. It was beautiful how they affectionately loved their deity like that. I just thought I'd share that with you.
Thank you.
All right.
Finish up the chapter.
We're going to finish it today, aren't we?
We can. We may, at this rate, we're not.
But we're talking about good stuff.
That's true.
We're talking about good stuff.
Okay.
Mara, where are we at? Mara?
Canto 3, Chapter 14, Text 47.
Mara's got to talk more.
I don't think so.
In order. Text 47. Everyone will be pleased with him.
No, this is talking about Prahlad, again, the grandson.
Oh, yeah.
Diti's grandson. Right?
Okay.
So this
she's
is Kashyapa. He's had this vision, and he's brought the bad news. You're going to have two sons that are, going to be tyrants. But the good news is your grandson's going to be the greatest Bhakti-yogi.
This is a full-on mystic thing. Like, they can tell you who's going to be born of you. You can do this with astrology as well. But some mystics can do this. Can you name it? Hot seat, Kaustubha. Can you name when they predicted what the children will be like? Any other story?
On the other story?
Any other story? Can you remember?
Well, I mean, there's so many. You want some Garga? I know you're a big Garga fan, right?
I'm a Garga fan. Yes, I am.
The prediction of Krishna's birth. So, yeah, I mean, why do you have something?
I was just
Lord
thinking
Chaitanya
of,
when
I was
he's
thinking
born?
of
There's so many
Vyasadeva.
examples.
I was thinking of Vyasadeva when he goes to Ambika and Ambalika. What will this child be like?
Mahabharat, yeah.
This child will be blind because he closed his eyes during conception, or she closed her eyes. Yeah. Anyway, so it's a mystic thing. You could tell the child. So you're gonna have two demon kids, and but you're gonna have a grandson that's gonna be good news, great news. Prahlad.
And now we're gonna hear about that grandson.
Everyone will be pleased with him because the personality of Godhead, the supreme controller of the universe, is always satisfied with a devotee who does not wish for anything beyond him.
That was what we were talking about earlier, right? When that Paramatma starts to speak to you, when you have noticed, it says they do not wish for anything beyond him, or let's say separate from him, apart from him, right? It's like, I've got my own agenda, and this is, really what our practice of Bhakti Yoga is like. It's like we become attracted to Bhagavatam, become attracted to the idea of Bhakti, we become attracted to the idea of serving and serving God. And we think, this is great, I like this, and I want to do some service. But then I also have my own agenda too, right? And I have my own agenda. And what we have to kind of realize is the more that we let go of our own separate agenda, the more we realize that our true fortune lies in the complete letting go, right? Not wanting anything but beyond the devotional service or that love.
Prabhu, is such a good point. We have an agenda, and sometimes we can even work our agenda using our karma. We can work our agenda to seem like I'm in the flow. Yeah, people talk about that at all. I'm in the flow of life. I'm doing it. I'm doing everything's happening the way it's happening. Yeah, or you're just acting out your material agenda. Be careful. That flow isn't always a spiritual flow. Right. Things might just be happening perfectly. There is a spiritual agenda for all of us. Krishna has a spiritual agenda, and we have to give our agenda to Krishna. And then that's our real potential, not some... I've maximized potential. I've done this, and my net worth is like this, and my income is like this, and my situation is like this. We see that all the time, this ladder of success where people climb very high, reach these high points, and they get to that top of that ladder, and they're like, I'm not happy whatsoever. That happens all the time. It's a material agenda. It's a material ladder of success, but it's not necessarily our spiritual ladder of success.
Nice.
You got to make sure that ladder's not leaning against the wrong wall, Kaustubha ji.
Thank you for that very pertinent analogy.
Germane. That was the word you used yesterday. I took note of that. You said germane.
I've never used that word in my life.
You've never used germane?
No.
Because I went and looked it up yesterday just so I could use it today.
It must have been somebody else.
I misheard you.
Yeah.
Mara, did he say germane yesterday? Did you say it?
I didn't hear Jermaine yesterday.
Maybe I just heard it. I was like, I got to start using germane. Okay. All right.
Text 48.
Text 48. The topmost devotee of the Lord will have expanded intelligence and expanded influence and will be the greatest of the great souls. He is one of the Mahajans. Due to mature devotional service, he will certainly be situated in transcendental ecstasy and will enter the spiritual sky after quitting this material world. He's predicting his birth and his death. He'll be virtuously qualified reservoir of all good qualities. Beautiful statement. A reservoir of good qualities. He will be jolly and happy in others' happiness. Right? That's a huge one. When you see other people happy, you're happy for them. Sometimes when people are happy, you're like, why are they so happy? What do they think? Right? We got to be happy for others' happiness. And they're distressed for other people's distress. Sometimes we see people distressed and we're like, it's about time they feel the pain. Like I feel it. Right? No, when people are distressed, they're distressed. That's a quality of a great soul. And they will have no enemies. By the way, no enemies doesn't mean that people will not hate them because, they crucified Christ. He didn't do anything wrong. But when people speak truth, you get people who don't like you. So it doesn't mean people won't necessarily not like him. But he will have no enemies. He'll see the world without enemies.
And that plays out because his father tries to kill him, but he has no animosity towards his father.
If you really just say that, like if you were to read that in a newspaper, boy's father tries to kill him. Son has no enemies. You know what I mean? Son is completely detached and loves his father anyway.
You do hear stuff like that, though. You do hear stuff like that, right? Like sometimes you'll hear a story in the news where like someone had their family member was murdered by someone, and then that person speaks with complete forgiveness towards the murderer. And
in the court case.
Yeah, you hear things like that. Yeah.
Special evolved beings.
Yeah.
Your grandson will be able to see inside and outside.
Hold it. Did you get he will be the destroyer of lamentation of all the universes? That's an important one.
Hold on a second. Text 49. He will be a virtuously qualified reservoir of good qualities. He'll be jolly and happy in others' happiness, distress in others' distress. He'll have no enemies. He'll be destroyer of the lamentation of all the universes, like the pleasant moon after the summer sun. Right? The moon is considered cooling, and the sun is heating.
Yeah.
Your grandson.
in one sense, I suppose you could understand that, like, his father, after the hot burning of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, the demonic tyrants, then the grandson will cool the whole thing down, right? It's like he'll give relief to everyone.
Right, because everyone had these tyrants. Everybody's miserable, and all of a sudden this great soul comes, and he becomes the king.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
He will be a virtuously qualified reservoir of good. Oh, no. Text 50
now.
Just keep reading the same verse. Your grandson will be able to see inside and outside. What does that mean?
He'll
The
be
Supreme
able to see
Personality of
God inside within himself and outside. Like, he'll be able to see him personally, like his form. He'll stand before him with his own eyes, but he'll also be able to see him within.
Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose wife is the beautiful goddess of fortune. The Lord can assume the form desired by the devotee, and his face is always beautifully decorated with earrings. The sage Maitreya said, hearing that her grandson would be a great devotee and that her sons would be killed by Krishna, Diti was highly pleased in mind. So she's like, all right, I got these 2 demon kids, but you know what? They'll be killed by Krishna. Not so bad. not so bad.
Pretty good.
Every kid's got issues. Mine will be killed by Krishna. Whatever.
Yeah, like the beginning and the middle won't be so great, but the end will be really good.
It'll be really good. How's that going to turn out? Now, it must be tough because the co-wife is having nothing but demigods as children. Parents. Oh, I'm a parent. I'm always looking at my other brothers and sisters' kids, trying to compare them.
So that's the end of that chapter, but it ended with the glorification of Prahlad.
Yeah.
And we can see here, like just some of the highlights. That's what's mentioned. But these are the kind of things. Like, this is a text on Bhakti-yoga, right? Bhagavatam. It's boiling everything down for us, getting us focused on the right point. We say we're yogis, but we want to go deeper into it. We've been practicing asana or whatever, and we like it, but we really want to kind of like go into what it's really all about. Well, here it is. Like, this is the kind of stuff that the yogis are focused on. This is where the attention should go. This is really what we're trying to cultivate. So it mentions in text 46 that he's free from animosity. So much so. And here's what the yogis do, right? The saints try to emulate this. So this is how you practice yoga, right? Look at Prahlad's freedom from animosity. Let me contemplate that. Where I go and rationalize my own animosity, well, there's nothing in my own life to justify it beyond what Prahlad was going through, right?
Yeah.
So let me try to emulate that sense of animosity. That's what it means to be a yogi.
Prahlad has every reason to be like, what a horrible upbringing.
Yeah.
I mean, some of us had some pretty crazy parents.
Yeah.
We didn't all have a Papa Tony in our life, right? Mara's got Papa Tony. The guy's like a liberated soul, right? We didn't all have Papa Tony. Some of us had crazy parents. Let me ask you a question. Was your father as crazy as Hiranyakashipu? Come on.
Yeah, you think your father was a tyrant? Forget it. Yeah. So okay, that's what it means to practice yoga, right? To cultivate freedom from animosity towards any living being. Okay, then in text 47, we heard that everyone would be pleased by him, right? And there's, because of his exclusive devotion, because he dedicated himself, there's a principle, right? He dedicated himself entirely to God. And by pleasing God, who's in the heart of every living being becomes pleased with him. And that you know what that reminds me of? What example that reminds me of?
What?
Mahabharata. There's a clue.
Yudhisthira?
No, close. Draupadi.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because there's that.
Tell.
Because there's that story where Durvasa Muni came, right, with Duryodhana, the evil cousin of the Pandavas, wishing them misfortune, sends over Durvasa Muni with his thousands of followers to the Pandavas. Oh, you should go see Yudhishthira now. But he knows that,
That's a good one.
right? Yeah, he knows that.
Mahabharata is such a good story.
Now, if Yudhishthira was living in his kingdom, then he could accommodate all those that sage who's known to be easily upset and can quickly curse one with a very powerful curses. Now, if Yudhishthira was in his kingdom, then he could accommodate that sage and give him all hospitality as well as all his followers. But due to Rat and Duryodhana, Yudhishthira's living out there in the forest, and he's got such limited resources out there, right? And so he says, yeah, go see Yudhishthira, knowing that Yudhishthira wouldn't be able to accommodate him well, and that Durvasa would become upset, and likely a curse would result in that. So when they all show up, Yudhishthira's there with Draupadi, his wife is there, and he greets all the sages with great respect, and then says, well, why don't you all go bathe and we'll arrange for your meal. But the problem is that and Draupadi had this pot, right, that was like mystical. That
Mystical pot.
Yeah, she could cook, as much, you should get as much out of it as she wanted, and then when she ate, then it was like done, right? So she could feed Bhima, who was like this, what's the word used for him?
Herculean.
Or
eater.
There's another word for it. Voracious.
Voracious appetite.
Yeah, he had a voracious appetite. So she could feed, there's no limit to how many people she could feed, but once she eats, then the pot's done.
Yeah.
But what had happened was she had already eaten.
Yeah.
And so she's like, oh no, what are we gonna do? It's like
because the magic pots, even the magic pot's not working.
Yeah, it's like. But what was it that Krishna appeared there?
Krishna appeared right before Durvasa was ready to get out of the lake, and she said, "Hey, can I have some food?" And he says, and Draupadi's all in tears. Oh, Krishna, Durvasa's here with all his students. Even my magic pot is not working. And Krishna said, "Let me see that pot." And he got a little bit of rice. And he ate that little speck of rice. And when he ate, and this is the great story, when Krishna is satisfied, the entire universe is satisfied.
That's where we're going.
That's it. This. And Krishna felt, that was so delicious. And all of a sudden, Durvasa came back with all the disciples, and they were embarrassed. They were like, I don't know how to say this, but none of us are hungry anymore. We're all really satisfied. Yeah. We're completely satisfied.
Yeah.
It's a great story.
So this is playing out in Prahlad's life, that because he gave himself so completely and so satisfied Krishna, or God within the heart, so much that those in his presence also felt satisfied, and so they were naturally favorably inclined to him. So again, we hear that he's got no animosity, that everyone's pleased with him because of his exclusive devotion to Krishna, that he sees happiness, he feels happiness when others are happy, and he feels distress due to others' distress. That is a very, very key characteristic of the Vaishnava, of the Bhakti-yogi. We also hear that he had no enemies, and that this sage-like state of mind that we're hearing about, it gave him vision, right? It gave him vision to recognize God within himself, to see God within himself, as well as to see God externally without. And that's Sri Prahlad.
He's in a sage-like state of mind.
That does not sound right.
Sage-like state of mind.
No, that was a little bit off key, I think.
It's a little off key.
That's a nice
the wrong
try.
word. Stage. I said stage instead of stage. Okay.
All right. Mara, do we have takeaways for today?
There were some magical takeaways today.
Yeah.
What we got?
All right. If you're a spiritual presence, you affect everyone you love with a ripple effect of divine energy.
That's an awkward
That's
t-shirt.
A long one.
That's an awkward t-shirt, Mara.
Just like ripple effect or something like that.
Well, I was going to leave off the ripple effect of divine energy, but Raghu was really proud of that part of it.
Ripple effect.
No, that's a good part.
I just think ripple effect of divine energy would be a cool shirt. I'd actually wear that around. I'm a ripple effect of divine energy.
If you're a spiritual presence, you affect everyone you love.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. If you're only focused on serving, miracles happen everywhere.
Oh.
Focus on the message. Don't get caught up in the details.
Okay.
Essence. Yeah.
Yeah, our desires compromise our objectivity.
That can happen.
Yeah. All the time.
Krishna has a spiritual agenda for all of us.
Very important.
Yeah.
And make sure that ladder that you're climbing is not leaning against the wrong wall.
Ooh. The
All right.
milk geyser. Chance says the milk geyser. Old Milky. Wow.
There we go.
Thanks
That's
everybody
it.
for
That's
joining
today's
us. There's our music. Tom
Tomorrow's Sleeping Saturday.
Tomorrow's Sleeping
Right?
Saturday. Totally forgot. Get to sleep in tomorrow. Come join me in Yoga Factory Pittsburgh. And then Sunday, of course, at Beaver Sangha Center. Thanks everybody for joining us. Did you know Freya is from the Guernsey Islands?
Guernsey. Where's the Guernsey Islands?
No. The Channel Islands in Guernsey.
Oh, okay.
I still don't know.
Guernsey.
Oh, it's Freya.
That's somewhere like
Frey,
England,
not
right?
Freya,
Or
Freya.
UK?
I called it Freya.
Okay.
It's Freya in the UK.
All right.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. What a fun morning. That was a fun morning. That's the way I want to wake up in the morning. Hearing from the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam, we take this little medicine every day. It's the medicine for the mind, for the consciousness. Helps us reconnect. Living our yoga practice. This is it.
A little
It's
Krishna
gonna start
miracle.
directing my choices, creating a spiritual potential for me. What is my spiritual potential, Kaustubha?
We're going to find out.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Sleep in. You get to sleep in tomorrow for Q&A day. If you don't send your Q's in, we can't give you an A. Send them to Mara. Wisdom of the Sages 108@gmail.com. It's question day. Remember, it's Friday. So on Friday, we have a special rule. It's Tell a Friend Friday. Share somebody who's on that spiritual, they're on the edge. They're looking for some spiritual stuff. Say, hey, here's a link to Wisdom of the Sages. Check this out. I think you might like it. There's people who just get referred by a friend. I've read a lot of those. They get referred by a friend and they're like, yeah, I just started listening to this. Somebody thought I would be into it. I'm totally into it. Now I'm binge listening. If you're going to binge on wisdom. It's not my wisdom. I'm not so wise. It's Krishna wisdom. It's spiritual wisdom. Give it away. Shirada. Let's dance, people. Come on. It's 6 a.m.